It is the number one coding language mainly because of its efficiency and productivity. What is Python and why is it so popular? Well, Python is a programming language which people commonly use in data science and machine learning. Python is also very popularly used in web development, also known as building websites. Some of you may be wondering what software you can use. Well, I use Replit, and it's a software which you can make online projects with. I'll run you through the steps right now. So first, you're going to want to search Replit on Google, then click sign up. Then this screen will appear, and on the right hand side it says continue with Google, so click that. Then choose your account which you would like to sign up with. Then the home screen will show up, and on the top left hand side it says create repo. So then click that. Some drop down boxes will appear and click Python. For the title, Replit will automatically give you random words, but if you don't want them to be your title, you can change it, and once you're happy with it, you can click create repo. Then this screen will appear which you can start writing your code in. There is one thing I'd like to cover, and that is the print function. This function basically copies what you write here down here. So in the apostrophes I can write cake. I click run. Down here it will say cake. Just be aware you can't always use apostrophes. Sometimes you'll have to use speech marks. I'll show you an example. So if we write don't eat the cake and then you press run, there's a syntax error because this looks like your string, but it gets confused because you've put another apostrophe. To stop this from happening, you can use speech marks because they don't look similar. And then once we've done that, we can click run and it'll show up properly. Variables are used to store data temporarily. This can be someone's name, age, job, etc. For example, if we write age equals 80, this will be stored in a piece of memory. The way the interpreter does this is that it finds a piece of memory, it puts the number 80 in it, then labels it age. And next time we use the variable age in our code, it will always refer to the number 80. The way we can prove this is by writing print, then age. And when we click run, the number 80 shows up. And notice that I'm not using an apostrophe, because when I do, it shows up as age. This is because this looks like a string and not a variable, and you don't want that. So just keep in mind that you shouldn't use apostrophes or speech marks when you want to print out a variable. Now, if I write age equals 50, then click run. Over here, it will show up as 50. This is because the interpreter runs the code line by line, so whatever the last value you give the variable is what it will be stored as. Now we're going to learn about different kinds of values. There's something called a floating value. This could be price equals 5.5, and it's basically a decimal value, and this is an integer value because, well, it's an integer. There's also something called a string value. So this could be name equals John. And there's also something called a Boolean value, which is either equal to true or false. So this could be is told, and then that would equal true. And just keep in mind that when writing a Boolean value, it always has to be the first letter, so T or F. It has to be capital, because otherwise the interpreter doesn't recognize it, and then there's a red squiggly line under it. So make sure that it's a capital letter. Okay, now I'm just gonna go around and label them. So this is an int, this is a float, this is string, and this is a Boolean. And also note that once you put a hashtag in front of something, it automatically doesn't become part of the code. It's more of just an author's note, so it's helpful because if you have like a really long piece of code and it's quite confusing, you put a hashtag and then you write what it is or what you want it to do, and it just becomes less confusing because it's more straightforward because you know what you're going to do. We're going to be using the input function. It's just like the print function, except it doesn't print out the string. It asks a person a question. And today we're going to be writing some code which asks someone their name, their favorite color, and then their favorite food. And then using that to build a sentence describing the person. So let's get started. Step 1 is asking what their name is. So we could say in then brackets. What is your name? And remember to leave a space after the question mark and before the apostrophe, because when we press run, there's a space between where we write our answer and the question mark. It's not really necessary, but it just looks neater. So the answer to this would be Anika. Also, remember to always name it as a variable. So we could say name. Step 2 is asking them what their favorite color is. So this would be say underscore color. Now, when we write stuff in Python that has more than one word, we normally separate it with an underscore. It just looks a lot neater and easier to read. So this could be input, what is your favorite color, question mark. So when we run it, it asks us, what is your name? So Anika, what's your favorite color? Okay, step 3 is what their favorite food is. So the variable name could be fav food equals input, what is your favorite food? Question mark. Then when we run it, it asks us what is your name. So Anika, color pink, favorite food, pizza. Now step 4 is putting all of the information that is given to us into a sentence. That sentence could be Anika likes pink and pizza. So to do that, we could write print, then brackets, so this would be name, plus, then you put the apostrophe, likes, and also remember to put a space before the word and after the word, so it looks like a sentence. We can do the variable name, so plus fav color, and then plus. So remember space before and after the word. So when we run it, it asks us what's your name. So Anika, what's your favorite color? Pink. And then what's your favorite food? Pizza. And then Anika likes pink and pizza. That's how we would do it. And also, if you're a bit confused, feel free to try it out on your own, type conversions. So to get started, I'm going to be using the input function to try and find the user's age. The way I would do this is age equals in enter your age. And then on the next line, our goal is to find the user's birth year. So to do that, I'm going to write birth underscore year equals 2023 minus age. The reason I'm doing 2023 is because it's the current year. And then I'm going to do print birth year. Okay. I'm going to run and see. Okay, the reason that there was an error, it says it here, subtracting an int and a string. So what it's saying is that this 2023 is an integer and age is a string. So the interpreter's getting confused because it doesn't know how to subtract different kinds of values. So the way to fix that is that we put int and then a bracket in front of input and then another bracket. And that should convert the age, the string, into an integer. Okay, enter your age, 15. Strings. In a previous video, I told you when you should use an apostrophe and when you should use speech marks, but what if you want to define a string using multiple lines? For example, if you wanted to write an email or a letter to someone, then you would need to use a lot of lines. In this case, you'd use triple quotes. So for example, we could write email equals triple quotes, Dear Miss Smith and Nika. So on the next line, if we write print, then brackets, email, then click run. There we go. Okay, now we're going to write a simpler string. So let's write hello world. Okay. Now we're going to be learning how to extract a character with a given index. To do this, next to email, we're going to do the square brackets. So for example, we can write 0, and then when we run, there's a H down here. This is because 0 is the index of H. Similarly, if we do 3, then we run, there's L. So it would be, the indexes would be, so H is 0, then E is 1, then L is 2, then the other L is 3, then O is 4. In Python, we also have negative indexes. So this would be, so W would be -5, and then O would be -4, and then R would be -3, and then you get the idea. So if I just take away this line, we can also extract more than one character. To do this, we would use a colon, so 0, colon, 2. And then when we run, HE shows up. So if we take away the last index and then we run, the whole thing just shows up because the interpreter assumes that you mean like to the last letter, so -1. Similarly, if we take away 0 and then we write 5, then we run, hello comes up. This is because the interpreter assumes that you start from 0. So if you don't, well, just make sure you write something. So we could write 1, and then when we run it, it says hello. While loops and for loops. First, we're going to be looking at while loops. You use while loops when you want to repeat a chunk of code. For example, if we wanted to count up till 100 in the 10 times tables, then you can write print 10, print 40. You get the idea. But what if you wanted to go up till 1,000? That would be a lot of lines of code, and it will probably get really long and tedious. This is where while loops come in handy. You use while loops just to make that part a bit shorter. So we start it by getting a variable. So for example, n, then it equals, since we're counting up to 100 in the 10 times table, we write 10. In the next line, we write while n less than or equal to 100, then a colon. and then we write print n. Then on the next line, this is a crucial step. We write n equals n plus 10. The reason why this is a crucial step is because if you don't have the plus 10, then the interpreter will just keep giving you numbers until it is equal to 100. But without the plus 10, n will always equal 10, so it will just keep going and going. It will never stop until your computer runs out of memory. So just remember this step. Now when we run, it shows up down. Now we can also use this to not just print numbers, we can also print symbols like an asterisk. So we can do multiplied by. So now when we run it, we get this. So there's 10 stars here, then we have 20 stars here, and then we have 30 stars here, all the way up till 100 stars. Okay, now we're going to look at for loops. First we get a variable, and I'm going to write a list of numbers. So we can do 100, 200,000. Okay, then on the next line, I'm going to write print n. So when I run, it shows up down there. But what if you want the numbers each on a separate line? That's when you would use a for loop. So the way you would write this is for, and then you give the loop a name. I'm going to write item, and then in n, and then we write directly underneath item, we write print item. And then when we run, there we go. Now we can also do the same using a while loop, but it's just a bit longer, but I'll show you anyways. The way you would do it is that you get a variable, so for example we can say I, and then equals 0. Then on the next line we would write while I is less than len, and then n in brackets. Len is basically just another function, just like print, but it measures how long the variable is. So what it's saying is that it will keep printing what I is equal to until it's the same length as this. And then on the next line, just under I, we write print, and then we write n, and then using square brackets this time, we write I. Then just under print, we would do I equals I plus 1. Now when we click run, it shows up down here. The first set is using the for, and then the second set of 1,000 is using the while. So you can use both ways, but while is just a bit longer.
The range function, it's used to generate a sequence of numbers. The way we write it is range, then brackets, and inside of the brackets we have to pass a value, so I'm going to say 3. Then we have to make a range object, so I'm going to say n. A range object is basically something that can hold a list. My range object would be n, and n holds the numbers 0 to 3, which means that you have to exclude the number 3. But if I were to print range object, then it would say range 0 to 3. This is because it's just the default way of representing range objects in Python. But if you wanted to make a list of numbers that spread across like multiple lines, then you would have to use a for loop, which we learned about in the last video. So we would write for numbers in n, and then use a colon. Then over here, make sure print is just underneath numbers. Then you write numbers. So when we run it, it shows the numbers 0 to 1. Now, if we wanted to, next to 3, we can write another number. So I'm going to say 10. This number basically just makes them, instead of it counting from 0 to 2, it counts from 3 to 9. So if we would run that, 3 to 9. Now if we write a second comma, and then I'm just going to write another 3. This one, it counts how many steps it goes in. So if I run it, it says 3, 6, and 9. So the starting number is 3 and it counts up till 10. And this one counts the number of steps it goes in. So it starts at 3, then 3 plus 3 is 6, then 6 plus 3 is 9. But 9 plus 3 is 12, and that's after the number 10, so it won't include that.
Yeah, arithmetic operators. These operators are just like the ones we have in maths, such as addition and subtraction. So now I'm going to write print, and I'm going to write 10 plus 6. And the answer to this is obviously 16. So this is the addition operator in Python. Now we're going to do 10 subtract 6. That will be 4. Now we're going to move on to multiplication, which is represented with an asterisk. And there's also another kind of multiplication operator, which you have 2 asterisks for. This basically means it's 10 to the power of 6. So that will be like 1 million. And then now we're going to move on to division, which is a slash. And we have 1.6 recurring. And this is a floating point number, but if you want an integer, then you have to put 2 slashes. And then the integer of this is 1. There's also another one called a modulus operator, which is a percent sign, which gives you the remainder, which is 4. We also have augmented assignment operators, which are just short ways of writing something. Okay, so now we're going to get a variable, so n then equals, let's say, 6. And then on the next line, you realize that n is supposed to equal 10. Then you would do n equals n plus 4. Then if you were to print it, then it would say 10. But with an augmented assignment operator, we want to short form our code. So instead of writing that, we could do n plus equals 4. And it would still equal 10. Operator precedence and comparison operators. So I've written out this equation. The answer to this would be 35, because just like in maths, you have to multiply these numbers before you add this number on. And if you wanted to add the numbers first, you will have to put brackets before the 5 and after this 5. So then the answer will be 60. Okay, now moving on to comparison operators. We've already looked at arithmetic operators, and comparison operators are fairly similar. So I'm going to erase this. and I'm going to make a variable called y, and I'm going to say y equals 5 is equal to 6. This is the equal to sign. You use two equal symbols so it doesn't get confused with this. And then on the next line we're going to print y. This is what you call a Boolean expression. It's because it's either going to equal true or false. So if we run, this is obviously going to be false because they're not equal. There's also this sign, which you use when something isn't equal to. So this will be true. And then there's also the greater than and less than sign. So over here we can say 6 is greater than 5, which will be true. And then we could say 6 is less than 5, which is going to be false. And then there's also the less than or equal to. So run, it's probably going to be false. And then greater than or equal to, which is true. Okay, so let's recap. So we've learned the equal to sign, we have the not equal to sign, we have the greater than sign, we have the less than sign, we have greater than or equal to, we have less than or equal to. We're going to look at logical operators. So I'm going to write a variable saying age equals 17. Then underneath it, I'm going to say print. Then inside of the brackets, I'm going to say age is greater than 10, which is true. And then I'm going to use the AND operator, and I'm going to say age is smaller than 20, which is also true. So when I run, it should be true. Okay, now where it says AND, I'm going to change it to OR and change 17 to 7. So it should be true. The OR operator, as long as one of these is true, so age is larger than 10, that is false, and age is smaller than 20, that is true. As long as one of them is true, then the whole expression will be true. And now I'm going to take off this part. And then I'm going to run, then it will be false. Now I'm going to use the not operator and put it in front of age. Then it should make it true. So this operator, it makes a false Boolean expression true. Okay, let's recap. So today we learned the AND operator, which only has a true Boolean expression if all of them are true. And then we have the OR, which as long as one of them is true, the whole expression will be true. And then we have the NOT, which makes a false statement true. If statements, I've written out this piece of code using if statements. So let me just explain it. So the first step to writing an if statement is you need a variable. So I've written that temperature equals 10. And then the next step is you write your actual if statement. You say if temperature, in my case, I'm saying if temperature is greater than 20, then I want it to say stay hydrated. And then elif, you can say elif is just short for else if temperature is greater than 10. I want it to print it's moderate.
So if the temperature is greater than 10, and once it gets to 20, so if the temperature is 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, or 20, then it will print it is moderate. And then if they write anything else, I want to print it is cold. So I wrote temperature is 10. Then if I run it, it'll say it is cold. But if I say 30, then it will say stay hydrated. Lists. We use lists when we want to present multiple things. We're going to start our list with a variable, so I'm going to say numbers, and then when we use lists, we always use square brackets, so I'm going to write the numbers 79, then 58, and just note when we write lists, we separate everything with commas, and then finally 86. Now I'm going to write a print statement. So when I run, it shows up down here exactly what we wrote here, including the square brackets. But what if we want to print a single number from our list? Well, in this case, next to the word numbers in square brackets, we write the index of the number we want in our print. So you guys should be familiar with indexes. We went through this in a previous tutorial. So I want to include the number 23, and the index of this is 2 because 79 is 0, 58 is 1, and then 23 should be 2. So I'll write 2, and then when I run, it says 23. Similarly, if you want to print more than one number, you put a colon next to the 2. So I want 79 and like everything between 79 and 35 to be printed. So I'm going to write 0, then colon 4. The reason I'm writing 4 is because the last index will be excluded. So if I run it, it gives me my numbers. About list methods, so let's get started. I'm going to write a list of numbers, so n, then the square brackets, so 5, 3, 6, 9, 2, and then 7. Then I'm going to do an n, and then a dot. And then when you put the dot there, there's a bunch of these methods that you can use for lists. The first one I'm going to talk about is append. The append method basically just adds a number onto the end of your list. So if I put brackets there, and I want to add the number 1 on the next line, I write print, then n. So if I run it, it'll add the 1 on the end. Now, what if you want to add a number in the middle of your list? Then you would use the insert. For the insert, the first number has to be an index, as it says here, and I want to put the number in the index 2, so I'll write 2, then a comma, and then the next part is what number you want in that index. So I want the number 8, so then I'll put that in there, and when I run, it puts the number 8 in the second index. What if you want to take out a number? Then you would write remove, and then you write the number you'd like to remove. So I don't like the number 2 here, so I'll take that out. And it's not there anymore. Tuples. Tuples are a bit like lists, except you can't modify them as you go on. So I'm going to start off by writing a variable. So I'm going to say n. Then I'm going to use the curved brackets because when you're writing a tuple, you don't use square brackets because that's the difference between writing a list and a tuple. So I'm going to say 2, then 3, then 7, then 5, then I'm going to say 4. And then I'm going to write a print statement. And then inside of it, I'm going to do n dot. Tuples only have 2 different kinds of methods to use. One of them is count and one of them is index. So if I click count, I'm going to say 7. And then over here, if I put another 7 there, and then I run it, it should say 2, because this one counts how many items, how many of this you have in your tuple. The other one was index. So if I'm trying to find the index of 7, so 7 shows up the first time here, so the index should be 2 as well, because this is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. So as you can see, neither of the methods in tuples are able to modify the list. So if you don't want to accidentally change your list, then I would suggest to use a tuple. Unpacking is something we use in Python to shorten our code. So for example, I'm going to make a list, and then I'm going to say 5, 6, 7. And you want to give each one of these numbers a letter value. So you could do it like this. You could say x equals list 0, and then copy it, and then list 1, and then the next one could be z equals list 2. So that would be a way to give each one a letter value, and we can test it worked by printing x. So it comes out as 5. But this is a bit too long of code, so instead we can write something like this. So we could do x, comma, then y, z, and then equals lists. So let me just take this part off. And then let me print x. As you can see, it still works. The reason why it works is because the interpreter goes to the first item in the list and assigns it to this letter, and then the second item and assigns it to this letter, and then so on. So that's a way to unpack your code and organize it. Dictionaries. Dictionaries are used to store key value pairs. So first we're going to write a variable. Mine is going to be information, and then equals, then we use a curly bracket, in dictionaries. So I'm gonna say name is Grace. Then don't forget to add a comma at the end. Then I'm just gonna say the age is 25 and the city is New York. And make sure when you write your dictionaries that none of them are duplicated, because if they are, sometimes there will be a squiggly line under it. So if I did 25 again, then there's a squiggly line under it. So I should just take that off. And say if you've decided to change your name, say if Grace is spelt differently, like that, and you want to change it, you could write under here, you write information, then you write in square brackets, you would write name, then you would change the spelling to that. And then if we print information, there we go. Functions to make our code more organized. It's really important to organize your code as you go. When you have big pieces of code, it can get really confusing. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. So first I'm going to start off by writing some sentences using the print functions. Print. And then I'm going to say a few sentences describing myself. So my favorite color is green. And then, okay, so I've got 3 print statements here, which I'm going to be using again. So to make it more efficient and less cluttery, I'm going to define this into a function. So the way I'm going to do this is saying def, then I'm going to make a name, so description, and then I'm going to use brackets and then a colon, and then make sure you have put your print statements underneath the word description. I'm going to write another print statement, but make sure you leave 2 lines after your block before you write another piece of code. So I'm going to say print hello. And then I'm going to use my description. And then I'm going to say print goodbye. So when I run it, it will say, hello, my favorite color is green, my favorite food is pizza, and I like dogs. Goodbye. So that's a way you can organize your code. Most of you guys are probably wondering why we put brackets over here. This is where we're going to write a parameter. So where it says hello, I don't just want it to say hello, I want it to say hello and then the person's name. So over here, I'm going to say name. And then at the start, I'm going to write the letter F. And then I'm going to use these curvy brackets and I'm going to say name. And then where just the description down here is, I'm going to write the name that I want to use. So I want Grace. So when I forgot to use the speech marks. Yeah, it shows up here. It says, hello Grace, my favorite color is green. My favorite food is pizza. I like dogs. Goodbye. You can also do this multiple times. So if I copy this, then I can change the name if I want. So like, if I don't want Grace, maybe I can say Max. And then it copies it out twice. It says, hello Grace, my favorite color is green, da 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 da. And it says, hello Max, my favorite color is green, blah blah blah. So if I wanted to do this, then over here I would have had to copy it out twice, but due to the parameter, I don't. So that's it for this video.